Hello health champions! Today I want to talk about fasting or intermittent fasting versus eating less. And we want to really understand what happens in the body when you restrict the period of time that you eat food during the day, such as an intermittent fasting, versus if you restrict the calories or the amount of food that you eat in each meal, such as in frequent meals and calorie restriction. And we want to understand fully how these two methods compare and differ in terms of insulin resistance and diabetes and, of course, weight loss. Coming right up. Hey, I'm Dr. Ekberg. I'm a holistic doctor and a former Olympic decathlete. And if you want to truly master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Let's first look at two different statements. The first one is, in order to lose weight, you have to eat fewer calories than you burn. The second statement is, in order to lose weight, you simply have to eat fewer calories than you burn. And at first glance, to most people, they look like the same thing. But the first one is totally true, and the second one is absolutely false. But unfortunately, most people don't see the true difference between these two statements, including doctors and dietitians and policymakers, and that is why there are billions of people who have unsuccessful weight loss attempts. The prevailing official weight loss model is called calories in, calories out. Eat less, exercise more. And it says the following, that if you eat 1,500 calories and you're burning 2,000 calories, if your basic metabolism is 2,000 calories and you cut back to eating 1,500, then you will have a shortage or a deficit of 500 calories per day. And if you keep that up for 7 days, you'll have a deficit of 3,500 calories per week, and you will lose 1 pound of fat per week. That's what the math says. And therefore, according to the math, if you weigh 200 pounds, you are burning 2,000 calories, and you eat 1,500 calories, then a year later you will weigh 148 pounds. You lose 1 pound per week in a straight line. That's what the model says. That's what the math says. Unfortunately, there's only one problem with this, and that is it doesn't work. Sound familiar? It never worked, it never will work, and if you're watching this video, you probably know that it didn't work for you either. In reality, the results look more like this. You cut back by 500 calories, you lose some weight initially, you even might lose faster than the predicted 1 pound per week because you're going to lose some extra fluids in the beginning, but pretty soon the weight loss slows down, eventually it plateaus, and then the body starts gaining, and before long, you're back to where you started. But the idea of calories in, calories out is so strongly ingrained in our culture that when they observe this, then they say, well, obviously you're not doing it right because the model can't be wrong. So if you're not getting the straight line results, then there's something wrong with you. You might be cheating, you might be eating things you're not confessing to, you might be actually eating more calories than you think you are. You may not be measuring, you may not understand this properly, or you might not be burning as many calories as you think. Your exercise might be less than what you think it is. And science doesn't lie is an argument that if the science, if the math and the model predicts a straight line weight loss, then that's what should happen. And if it doesn't happen, then there's something wrong with you because, of course, math is math. Math can't lie. And the physics, the law of thermodynamics, says that the energy of a system is constant and the system predicts a straight line weight loss. So if science says one thing and we're observing something different, what are we missing? Well, it's not that math or physics is wrong, it's just that they're not the only science out there. And when we look at the calories in, calories out as the simple and only part of that argument, then we're missing a whole branch of science called biology. Because living things like humans and tigers and bacteria and any living organism, it has behavior and it has goals guiding that behavior. And the strongest behavior and goal of all is the survival instinct. A math equation doesn't have behavior. The law of thermodynamics doesn't have survival instinct. They're kind of inert. But living things have goals. They want to survive. And to that effect, they're going to vary their amount of hunger, their metabolism, their hormones. And these are going to change your behavior. So hormones like ghrelin for hunger and leptin for satiety, or insulin for storage, or human growth hormone to build tissue or burn fat, these hormones will override any kind of willpower in the long run. That's why we can't fight this. We have to correct the hormonal balance if we want to have success in the long run. So now that we understand that there's an additional science called biology, let's look at how the math changes and look at a concept called set point. So in the beginning, there's no difference. We still have a 500 calorie deficit on week 1, and we're losing a pound or even more per week. But then, as time goes on, the body changes behavior based on perception. It makes different interpretations about your circumstances and your environment. So a few weeks into it, you're eating the same amount, but now you're not burning the same amount. The body senses that there is a shortage. We don't have the same availability of fuel anymore. So now, even though you're eating the same, your deficit is down to 200 and your weight loss has slowed to 0.4 pounds per week. And if time goes on and the body gets more and more concerned about its survival, then it might cut the consumption, the metabolism, the burning down to 1300. So now you start gaining weight. You start putting on some weight, even though you're eating the same amount of calories that resulted in weight loss initially. So what is this thing called set point? Is there a place in the body? Is there something we can measure? Show me the set point? No, it's a concept. And it's a concept based on the behavior of the body. So it is not something we can measure. There's no lab marker for it, but we know based on countless observations, and you probably observed this yourself, that with a constant input, the body changes the output. The body's behavior changes. And we reason that the body has a set point. It tries to return to this. And it works both ways. So for a lean person who is athletic and not insulin resistant, they could double their calories and not really gain weight. The body compensates by increasing the metabolism, just like it does by decreasing. So we know the body changes its behavior to stay around a certain weight, and that's what we call the set point. So let's look a little deeper on this set point and how it normally works in your favor. That let's say you start at a set point of 150, that's what your body believes it should weigh. Then you eat some food, your body releases some insulin to process that food and to store some of that excess as fat, so you gain a few pounds. As those fat cells fill up, they start releasing leptin, which is a satiety hormone that signals the brain that we have enough. We've got some extra fuel, we have some reserves, so you can reduce your appetite and stop eating. So leptin signals to reduce appetite so we don't have to eat anymore. And while we're not eating, now we can burn through those fat stores, and as we burn through, we return to our original weight of 150 pounds. So in this way, it helps us maintain a set point. And then, of course, once we're back to starting point, now the leptin goes down. So when leptin goes down, we're not as satisfied, we're not as full, and we signal ghrelin. Ghrelin is released, which is hunger, and the hunger goes up so we can eat again, and we can repeat this over and over. So in this way, the set point helps us. But now let's look at how that set point works against us when we disturb the balance. When we have frequent food, and especially if we have processed food, high sugar, high starch foods, then they create excessive insulin responses, and we have frequent meals, so now we have chronic excess insulin, which creates insulin resistance and chronic fat stores. So now we gain weight, but now here's the difference, that these fat stores, they release leptin, and that leptin is supposed to turn off our hunger. It's supposed to make us feel satiated, but in the presence of insulin, when we become insulin resistant due to high levels of insulin on an ongoing basis, the feedback mechanism doesn't work. What is supposed to sense satiety gets desensitized, so even though you're gaining fat, you're still hungry. You don't have that sense of fullness. You have corrupted the feedback mechanism. So you keep eating and you keep storing fat even though you already had plenty of it. So this is how we gain weight. And it might be a few pounds at first, but over the course of years and decades, it just keeps going up and up and up. And the mechanism that's supposed to return us to our set point has been distorted. It has been corrupted. And the reason this feedback mechanism doesn't work anymore now is because of insulin and leptin resistance. So now, even though we keep adding to the fat stores, even though we keep gaining weight, we're still hungry and we keep eating. Now let's look at a little more detail on how exactly intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating compares to frequent small meals. Because according to the calories in, calories out model, it's all about calories. So if you eat 300 and 300 and 300 5 times a day, that is 1,500 calories. That should still work. And in their minds, according to the math of calories in, calories out, it's exactly the same thing as eating 600 plus 900 calories in 2 meals closer together, because it's still 1,500 calories. Then why is that not the same thing? Because the insulin response is different. So if we eat 5 small meals, then there is 5 times per day that we trigger insulin. And every time we trigger insulin, and there's only a short period till the next meal, it doesn't allow the insulin to drop very much. And if we have a meal at 6 and we have a late night snack at 9 or 10, then we're basically still at midnight. We're still in insulin resistance mode. And it's only after we've been sleeping for a while that it drops a little bit during the morning hours. With intermittent fasting, when we have a shorter feeding period, we have the last meal at 6 o'clock, that leaves us enough time that by midnight we already have a few hours where insulin has been dropping, and then during the early morning hours it keeps dropping lower and lower and lower, and then because we don't have breakfast first thing, it keeps dropping even lower. So it's both the time frame and how deep the insulin is, how low the insulin is allowed to drop. If we compare them side by side, it's even more obvious that with the frequent meals, the only time that we are allowing insulin to drop, where we're becoming more insulin sensitive, is for about 6 hours in the morning. 25% of the day we are becoming insulin sensitive. For the rest, the 75% of the day, we are either neutral or promoting insulin resistance with insulin levels being high. We're being in storage mode. With intermittent fasting, on the other hand, we are already a few hours into insulin sensitivity of lowering insulin before midnight, and then we have 16 hours in total before the first meal. So during all this time, we are getting a continuous slow lowering of insulin resistance. And it's only for about a third of the day, 8 hours, that we're either neutral or promoting. So the proportion of time that we are in insulin sensitivity versus insulin resistance, promoting insulin resistance, is very, very different. And that is why intermittent fasting is so much more powerful. And this is why intermittent fasting actually works, because when we allow insulin to drop for a longer period of time, then we also lower insulin resistance over time. It might take weeks or months or even years, but that's the only way that we can lower insulin resistance. And now we're shifting the body's tendency. The whole metabolism shifts from a storing tendency to a willingness to burn energy. And with reducing insulin, we also reduce leptin resistance, which of course will change our appetite. We don't get as hungry. As a result of all that, we lower the set point. And an additional bonus is that with longer fasting, we increase human growth hormone, which is tissue building, muscle sparing, and fat burning. So if you truly understand this, it has very, very little to do with calories. You can't deprive yourself, you can't starve yourself and get long-term results. And I hope that you can see by now that it's all about the intelligence of the body understanding what is going on. That once we can restore balance and change the set point, the body sees the truth about what's going on and it is willing to lose the weight. If you enjoyed this video, I think you'll love that one next. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.